Welcome to Whatcha Makin, a podcast about sharing ideas, discussing the business of making, and connecting with the maker community. Your hosts are Alex Adams, an engineer turned furniture maker of Type A Furniture, and an alien pretending to be a DIY craftsman, Alex Duffey of Duffey Woodcraft. This is Whatcha Makin.
Welcome to episode 1 of Whatcha Makin. I'm Alex Duffey with Duffey Woodcraft. We are a podcast where we discuss who we are and what we're making, maker news, and what's going on in the maker community. You can find me at Duffey Woodcraft on Instagram and on YouTube, and I'm an instructor over at cncwithme.com as well.
And I'm Alex Adams, a former engineer that went from making surgical robots and IoT devices to building furniture full-time. And you can find me on Instagram at Type A Furniture.
So, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing all right. A little bit warm, but otherwise doing well.
Yeah, is it a little warm there today?
Yeah, we've been getting up into the 80s recently, so it's starting to get hot and sticky.
Oh, yeah. We're not there yet, luckily. It's we're fighting a cold system right now, so it's only like 50 and rainy and, you know.
Well, it's always rainy up there, right?
Yeah, it's Pacific Northwest. We're always rainy.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we get right on into it with our segment of Whatcha Makin?
We have the technology faster.
All right. So again, I'm Alex from Duffey Woodcraft. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest. And so what I'm making this week, and actually have been for the last about 3 weeks, is a whole bunch of UFO stuff. I am about to do a big UFO fest for the McMinnville UFO Fest in McMinnville, Oregon. It is the second largest UFO fest in the United States, only second to Roswell, of course. And it is one of my biggest events throughout the year. I usually do about 10% of my entire business at the show. So it's one I've been just planning for the last month and building things from UFO lights, which are these little like dioramas with a UFO on top and an acrylic rod that goes down that has some LEDs in the base. So it looks like the UFO is like beaming a big light down into the earth. And then I always put like cows that are being abducted by the beam and stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
And how many days is that event? How long does that last?
So normally it's a 1-day event. However, it is 2 days this year. It's their 25th year anniversary this year. So they're doing a 2-day event, which is going to be new. So I don't know what to expect on Friday, because it's normally just a Saturday event. And it's an hour and a half away from my house. So I'm getting a hotel room that night down there. So that's more cost. So I don't know what it's going to be. But I'm looking forward to it. And because it's year 25, they have a ton of speakers every single day. There's a big parade that always happens on the Saturday. They're doing these big like parties at different restaurants and stuff. So it's going to be super fun. I'm looking forward to the jam. It's always great people watching too.
So do you have to pull a whole trailer with all of your inventory, or do you just throw that in the car?
So I have an F-150, so I do load up the truck bed and the cab with a whole bunch of stuff. And then because this show is so big, my wife's car is also full of totes as well. So eventually I'm going to get a trailer. I just haven't got there yet. But if I keep growing, especially for the holiday markets, I usually bring so much stuff that it needs I'm almost at the point of a trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a covered trailer is nice, especially if it's, you got some weather or something like that rolls through. You don't have to worry about anything getting wet or issues.
And I saw these plans that I bookmarked that I really want, which is for a 6-foot tall trailer. Sorry, an 8-foot tall trailer. They're 6-foot tall shelves, and they literally have a section at the bottom for the pallet to go into. So you can just put all of your totes stacked on top of each other, and you can get 4 totes, and then you just pull in your dolly, you jack it up on the pallet and move it out, and it fits 8 of these perfectly in the trailer. So if you think about how many totes that is, 8 times 4 is whatever.
32.
48. 32. Yay, I can't do math.
I was always good at the little fast math things that you had to do in elementary school. That was my shining moment.
Well, you are an engineer, so I'd hope so.
Yeah, numbers good, words
Yeah.
bad.
Words are hard. But yeah, I was like, that seems like such a smart thing of just being able to come in, wheel them in and out, and empty all your stuff, load the shelves back up with the empty totes, and put them back in the trailer. So it's super simple. And
So you'd have to get a pallet jack for that setup then, or do you already have one?
I would. I'd have to get one of those, but that's okay. It'd be part of the investment of buying the trailer for me.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, is that going to be able to handle the terrain that you would need to go to if it's anything other than like concrete, getting through like grass or anything like that? I don't know what types of events you have to set up at, if it's all indoors or not.
The majority are indoors, or during the summer I do outside, which are street fairs. There's only one event I'm thinking of that is actually on grass, but they don't allow you to drive out there anyway, so it would be wheeling them in with a wagon anyway, which I do today.
Mm. Oh, so you already have is it like a garden wagon or something like that?
Yeah, it's one of the heavy duty ones that can hold 500 pounds though. So, I can put a bunch of totes in it at once. So I carry in like 6 totes at a time.
Nice. And so for the, because I know that you've been posting all of your UFO lights that you had, because how many of those did you actually make?
The plug-in UFO lights, there's 25 of them.
Okay. So because you used that Mappaburl slab that you won from Workbench Con, right? Is that what you used for it, or did you use different material?
I use different material. I luckily live in the Pacific Northwest, so there's burl everywhere. The Mappaburl slab is actually still boxed up in the garage. I haven't even opened it up yet.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to do something super special for that. I don't want to just piecemeal it like I would with the UFO lights. So I just haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it yet.
So what kind of burl did you end up using for those lights then?
Mostly maple, or and then there was some myrtle burl as well.
Okay.
Which
that's what I thought it was immediately, was the Mappaburl that you had, but I'm glad that you were keeping that as a slab, because it's always disheartening seeing a slab getting cut up, even though that's generally what happens when it becomes dimensional lumber anyway. So.
Oh, absolutely, but especially a burl slab, I'm not cutting that up. There's a guy that I work with for some of my wood. He's a lumberjack in Osawyer in the area, and he knows to save all his little burl cutoffs, because they're all about 6 inches by 8 inches in size at 4/4. And so he knows to save those chunks for me, and he just puts them in a flat rate box, and then I pay him like $150 for a flat rate box full of the burl chunks. So
nice.
Yep. So he gets to not have to burn stuff, and he gets to sell his stuff still. So it works out pretty well.
That's nice. Yeah, especially with burl, especially when you're doing smaller pieces, because that much figure in a large piece sometimes can get a little bit overwhelming.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I like, and again, for the UFO stuff, I like using the burl chunks because they have the spiky live edge. And to me, it looks like an alien terrain. I think of it as this, otherworldly piece of terrain, which is what I use it for. And with all the swirl and the grain, it looks really neat where, if you have a huge chunk of that or a whole table of it, it really can get busy pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main thing I've been working on. And then I'm currently shooting a video right now on a drill press review. I'm working on a Vevor drill, Vevor. They're kind of a Chinese brand, but they've been making some really great, inexpensive tools. And I did a sandblasting review earlier, and they sent me this drill press now to review. And so I'm currently filming that. And it's a great drill press. It's my first drill press that is also a variable speed. So that's kind of been interesting to play around with.
So is that an electronic variable speed, or is it just the belt?
It is belt driven, but it is an electronic turn to adjust it.
Is that a bench top, or is it a floor standing?
It is a bench top, almost a floor standing with how big it is. But
how tall is it?
It's about 3. No, it's 4. It's a good 4 feet.
Okay. Yeah, because I have a drill press from Wen that it also has a variable speed control on there as well. So it sounds like it might be similar. I can't remember how big the motor was on that thing, but I'm guessing it's pretty comparable to the one that you have, which is it's so nice to have that variable control on it.
It is, yeah, and it's, as I've been playing around with it, it's been really nice. And I think they're very similar, because I've noticed that and maybe it's because of the whole, political tariff stuff right now, I haven't been seeing their products on Amazon as much lately, where I've been seeing Beaver. So I don't know the company well enough, so I don't know if they did a rebrand or if they're the same, but it's the same color scheme. It's that orange and black.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the same, or they're very similar.
Yeah, or they keep more inventory already shipped in that they've got, so they don't have to like do just-in-time delivery type stuff to bulk up their inventory.
Exactly.
Which is always a whole other thing.
Yeah, so I'll have that video wrapped up in a couple of weeks for my next project video for the end of May, but that's what has been on my bench. What have you been working on?
I have been working on refinishing 27 church pews the last month and a half. So yeah, it's been a lot. So that one has been mostly finishing them in place as well. They're already got 2 coats of finish on them. I used a hard wax oil just because it's easier to apply that finish while it's in place so that you don't get runny marks or anything like that, because it's easy to just wipe it clean. Because what I do is I finish in the morning, so then I've got time to keep an eye on it and wipe up any excess if I don't want to say leaches out extra finish, but sometimes you get some finish that it's already got as much as it can, and then it releases a little bit depending on the type of board it is and the figure and all that stuff. So I do have to go back after that cures to put on a clear coat on it. So I'm just using a ceramic coat to do that. And that's because they wanted it to be even shinier than it was, even though I gave them a finished sample a long time ago where they thought that it was, just like a stain sample, even though I said, like, this is the finished sample, like, it's all in one. So they're like, it needs to be more shiny, so that's why I had to put a second, and sometimes those hard wax oils need a second coat anyway, just to make sure that it soaks up enough. And then the ceramic coat I'll add on to add a little bit more sheen to it. So I have to do that after all that stuff fully cures, because if it doesn't, then if it's curing underneath, it kind of gets this weird, like, milky white color. I know because I put some of it on a little bit too early on another project, so that's how I know that's kind of what happens. But yeah, so at least I think that's what happened on the project that I had, because it was on a piece of walnut, and so I waited the normal time that you would wait for it to fully cure, but it kind of got this, whitish layer, so I'm guessing that as it was curing, I don't know if it was, like a gas, like off gassing or whatever that kind of like built up in between, or what happened there. I don't know the true chemistry behind it, but I know that's one of the few, like almost the only thing that you can put on top of hard wax oil, because I researched like all my options to bring up sheen, and since it's a hard wax oil, it like the wax portion of it makes it hard for other stuff to adhere to it. So yeah, I do still go ahead.
I'd be curious. I'm curious what would cause that chemical reaction there, and maybe it was just that there's some moisture in the air that bonded with it when it was on the hard wax oil surface when you put then the surface or the ceramic coating on it.
Yeah, that could be as well. But yeah, so anyway, so those are done. Those are supposed to get screwed down to the floor, and then so I have all these like hymnal holders behind me that are stacked up. So I have to put on the clear coat on the backside since it's a nice surface, so I don't have to like go around all of that stuff after I put them on the back of the church pews. So I wanted to make sure that everything was finished there before I get all of this stuff on, because it's easier to put that clear coat on when it's just it's not a flat surface, because none of the surfaces on these pews are flat, which has made it a huge pain. But it's one continuous surface, let's say. So it makes it a lot easier to apply when you don't have to like stop and like go around and have all that stuff. So I'm going to be working on those hymnal holders, getting those refinished. And then after those get refinished, I'll put the clear coat on those as well. And then I'll put that on the church pews after the ceramic coat is put on those as well. So
this
that's
is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's a very long project. I did film it to make sure that I had content for it, but because they have not opened up the church, they saw my stories on, because I share my stories on Facebook as well as Instagram, and they saw it on Facebook, and they're like, we don't want you showing the inside of the church, even though the people that would like be intrigued by it definitely aren't going to be the same people that look at my Facebook stories. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So like that put a little bit of a wrench in me generating content, because like that's what I was doing like all day, come home for supper, go back out there in the evenings and work on it to make sure that everything was in line with the deadline that they gave me, which, surprise, a whole bunch of other stuff was not ready, because so the reason that they're having me refinish all of this stuff is because they had a fire sprinkler break, because in the winter, like a year and a half ago, the heater broke. So the pipes froze and then burst. And then this entire, it's a historical church, so it's not being used for, regular services. It's part of a historical, like 1920s farm. So they like rent it out for events like weddings and things. And so it's been a huge undertaking for all of the other water damage they had, because basically the basement was completely full of water. So they had there's been so much work been done to repair everything. So a lot of the church pews were water damaged. So there was a lot of fixing that went along with refinishing to make sure that everything was, good to go. So, that was, I'm very glad to be over the hill of all of the major work with it. Like the rest of it is, just small stuff. So
Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead with your question.
How do you land a job like this? Like how did they find you? Because this is a big undertaking, and you're listed as a furniture maker, not necessarily a restorer.
Right. Yeah. So, and especially after this job, I do not want to take any refinishing stuff, because my preference is building new things, because refinishing is a whole different workflow. So this was one where my son's swim team that he was doing on the summer, one of the people that was on the board for this place was like, you make furniture, we gotta repair some stuff. Is that something that you're interested in? So I put in a bid to do it. I put in a bid to do a couple other things, like refinish the floor and stuff, but the church pew was the only piece that I ended up doing. So that's, because I live in a town of 10,000 people, so it's not like we're a big sprawling metropolis. So there's a lot of local connection, word of mouth type stuff when it comes to getting jobs like that are very unique in that sense.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's the word of mouth stuff for a lot of the local work, so as I've been getting all of this stuff finished, I had to take a lot of tools on site to do that. So now that I've brought back all of my stuff, because all I need is a couple small things for the finishing and doing that little bit of adding the clear coat out there, I'm getting ready for the rest of my stuff, which that I'm working on, which are projects where essentially a tree in someone's yard needed to be taken down, and we got it milled up and we're turning it into a lot of different things. So I've got 2 different trees essentially. So one is a neighbor that lives on my street. We're going to make a dining room set out of it, and that's walnut. And then the other one is also walnut, and that one is between a few different family members. Some of them wanted a bench, and others wanted like some side tables, and some of them just wanted like, a circular slab cut out of one of pieces of the wood. So I'm getting all of that stuff brought in to work on next. Because one thing that's actually underneath all of these hymnals that's holding them up is a bunch of reclaimed wood for a golf course. So they built a new building, and they tore down the old one, and then they kept like the glue lamb beams and stuff, and they wanted to make tables out of it. So I picked these up I think it was about 2 months ago. 'Cause I wanted to pick it up to make sure that I saw what condition it was in before I quoted the project, because if they were in terrible shape, that's a lot more work to stabilize all that stuff. But unfortunately on those ones, they like kind of did a little bit of a head fake on pausing on that project, because they wanted 2 6-foot by 6-foot tables out of those glue lamb beams, which of course is massive. And then they paused, and they're like, well, why are we doing 6-foot by 6-foot tables? I was like, we had a meeting about this like months ago, where that's what you guys decided on. Surprise, customers changing their minds.
2 projects in a row for you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's sitting in here. So I might get all that stuff moved out to a place where I do more of my like longer term storage of lumber, so then it's out of the way, because you can imagine enough lumber to make 2 6-foot by 6-foot tables is a lot of lumber. So it's taking up a majority of my, probably about a quarter, more than a quarter, maybe like a third of my garage. So yeah, it makes it hard, because that's my garage space is where I like to do final assembly of like big stuff. And several of those projects that I have from those trees that we milled is big stuff. So I need that space to do that final assembly. But, and then I don't know if I'm going to have time for it, but I was maybe going to 3D print a couple of like knickknacks and stuff to go and have at the maker meetup here. That's going to be this weekend in Omaha. So,
but you are going.
Yes, I'm going to be going to it. Well, I might make some 3D printed things, but it's just going to be, if I get around to it, it's no big deal if I don't. So either way, it'll be a good time. So it's just like hour and a half, 45-minute drive away from me. So it's not too far. So it'll be just like a day event.
Bring a church pew.
Yeah. Hopefully they're screwed down by that point. Although they said they were going to screw it down to the floor 2 weeks ago, but then they didn't, because they were indecisive about a bunch of other stuff. And then I get a message today at it's like 5:15 or 5:20, where they're like, hey, aren't you going to be here to help us screw these down? I'm like, you guys said that you had it handled, and you guys were fine. What didn't tell me about this. And so I had to create a few shims for them on those church pews, because there's three legs, and for some of them the middle leg ended up being a little bit longer, so then it's kind of like teetering on that. So they because they have another guy that's been doing trim carpentry around there for other stuff that they've been having done, and they're like, well, you measure it, and then we'll have him make the shims and put them on. And I'm like, okay, he's there on site, so why do you want me to measure it and then have him make them? And he's told me before, trim carpentry and that kind of stuff is not my forte. And the stuff that he made, because these are about, the footprint is about 2 inches by 2 feet, roughly. And so he just did it on his job site table saw, where he ripped the thickness, so it was 2 inches high. And his stuff, he got so many spots where you could see that it kind of wobbled in there, and the thickness is not anywhere close to even. So I'm just I'm just gonna make some shims that you can use, because this is not going to go very well with the stuff that you have. So they had to refinish the front doors, and because those had warped over time, they took the panels out and they put new door panels in. So they had the old door panels. So I just made it from those.
Okay.
So I made a few out of those that they can use. And I even I finished it around the edges of it. At least the visible portions of the edges. So then when it stands up on top of that, it at least has the same color to it. So we'll see how that goes, because my understanding was that they were just gonna throw the shims under it and then screw it down and call it good. So we'll see if they are wanting me to do something different, but we'll cross that bridge when it comes. So, but yeah, that's pretty much everything that I've had on my plate lately here.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it!
So what have we been breaking is the real question this week. So for me, and what I've been breaking, what I've been fixing, again, with all the UFO stuff, I've been doing a lot of different size products. And so I've had a lot of scrap just piling up in the garage. And so I was going through it, and normally I just give it away to, there's a couple people in the area that burn wood for heat, but this time of year, they obviously don't need that. So I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do with all this extra? Like, they're really nice figured woods that's glue up. What am I going to do? Well, recently I got a laser, a big CO2 style laser this past winter. And something I've always wanted to do was earrings, because my wife has always seen these wooden earrings and like, oh, they're so pretty. You should make me some. And I'm like, that's not something I'm doing on the CNC. It's too small. It's too delicate. Yeah. I was like, all right, well, I have all these glue ups, so they're multiple colors of wood and different patterns. And so I used my bandsaw and ripped them down to just about under 1/8 of an inch thick. And then threw them on the laser. And so I've been making all these earrings, and I just bought some sterling silver earring hardware from Amazon for like 1,000 for a pack of 1,000 for $10.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've been making tons of earrings. So that has been my, like, I broke a bunch of stuff, but I fixed it by making new things.
So were you having earrings that were breaking, or was it having issues with
it's
the
like
laser?
all the scraps from all these projects that, like, I'm a DIY woodworker. Like, I'm not a fancy furniture maker, as I always say, because I have mad respect for people who make furniture, because there's a lot more precision and skill in it than I do. And so there's often times where I get distracted and I make mistakes and I cut through something and I'm like, oh, well, this drawer that I was making for this project is now done. Like, I can't use this anymore. So I just pile that all on my scraps. And so my fixing it has been, I've been trying to reuse all those scraps that normally I would just burn and throw away, and to make them into something else that is actually salvageable. And finding little things to make with the laser now is is what I'm finding that I can use that for.
Because what kind of laser are you using for that?
So I bought it's the new brand. It's called One Laser, and it's their XRF. It's their metal tube CO2. So it's a 65 watt CO2 style laser, but metal instead of glass, which is really nice because you don't have to worry about coolant or anything. So during the winter or during the summer, I don't have to worry about how hot or cold it's running, which is nice.
Like Patrick Gensel when his broke. That's tough.
Yeah. It was like the shattered glass that was heard around the maker community, where when that happened, everyone's like, ooh, I need to go check my coolant. Poor man. So yeah, I've been really happy with it. Brand new brand. I had pre-ordered it when it had come out. And so I was a little hesitant because, brand new, there's no reviews on it yet, other than a few influencers here and there. But it's been a workhorse, and I was using a small little diode laser pecker. Is the name. Don't laugh or do. But so I make these little bookmarks out of figured wood that people will buy, and I'll laser, like my weekend is booked, or I'm in my fantasy fray, or things like little sayings on them.
Mhm.
And with the diode laser, it would take about a minute and a half per bookmark. And then when I set up my little thing at my fairs, there's 12 bookmarks that can fit 15 a piece, so over 150 bookmarks. That's a long time to laser all those bookmarks. And so This was the first fair that I'm getting ready for that I used my new CO2 laser, and I did all 152 bookmarks in less than an hour, and I was so excited.
Oh yeah, I feel you on that one. When you get a way to do it really fast, and you're like, oh, that was so nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can do on the bed, I can fit 20 bookmarks at a time and have it just batch them out, which is just so nice.
What's the footprint size of that?
It's a 12-inch by 24-inch bed.
Okay.
So good size. Yep. Yeah, it's a standard laser bed size, which is great because I can get little eighth-inch sheets of balsa wood to cut out and do little projects. I've been experimenting with a whole bunch of this painted wood layered projects lately, which I'll get more into next week's podcast because I have a project I'm going to be working on this week with that. So.
Yeah, I too have been doing some more stuff with my laser. So, because I haven't used it a lot, so the one that I have is the render laser, which is now discontinued. I think it was technically a Kickstarter, I think, because I had gotten it in a giveaway, and so that one is 12 by 18 is the workspace, but it collapses and folds up, so it's portable. And so that one, what I did was we lasered some Mother's Day presents with it recently. So my wife had gotten this 1 foot diameter piece of 1/8-inch plywood from the dollar store. And lo and behold, it's warped. So what I did, that was my issue that I had to deal with, was that warping. So what I ended up doing was getting some of the, I used the double-sided X-fasten tape and taped it to a piece of MDF. Well, actually, first I tried to tape it to the bed of the unit itself. But since that thing is metal and it was in my basement, it was it was getting cold, and so shrinkage happens, right? And so then the tape would release. I'm talking about tape. Anyway, so that didn't work. So that's when I moved over to using MDF, which is it's not super strong, but it can handle 1/8-inch plywood, which I ended up, so it's a 12-watt laser, and I don't know what the issue was with that plywood, but I was having certain areas where it just was not wanting to engrave. So I don't know if it was just the quality of the plywood, or because it's not as strong of a laser, because I've lasered other stuff before where it was just solid hardwood, so maybe it's because it was because I'm assuming it was probably some kind of birch plywood, because it was super cheap stuff. So I'm guessing that was probably the issue.
But was it only in that one area?
It was kind of so if you imagine the text on it being the very bottom line of the text where it's starting, it was kind of that area of it, because I did have one of them. So my wife had picked the text in Lightburn, and she kind of did what she wanted for it. And the first one that I did had really scripty text, and it got really narrow in parts. And so that was one of the issues that I ran into, was it got too narrow, so it was barely spending any time on that area, so it wasn't lasering those really thin areas. But even though the second one I had her move to a blockier text that was a little bit wider, I still had issues in areas where it just didn't seem to want a laser. So I had to go through, I think I did 3 passes on that to finally get it close enough to what I wanted. But she ended up painting it and going over it in black Sharpie with the text. So I was oh, maybe I didn't need to go through multiple times, because I thought she was gonna leave it as is, because we had made a wedding present for someone with the same type of wood like a few days prior, and that one I just slapped some finish on it. So I thought that we were going to just throw some finish on it and call it good, but she wanted to do some painting and other stuff on it. So it ended up being that big of a deal since she was going over it with some Sharpie to kind of get those nice clean black lines where the text was. So either way, I overcame the curvature of the wood. And my other thing that I had, which I was on the phone with you, was I had oily rags start to smoke while I was in the church when I was refinishing, which was very surprising to me because we were chatting on the phone, and I was like, my rags are smoking. Let me call you back.
No, it was what's that? Whoa, I gotta go.
Yeah, I was very very frantic at that stage. So normally when I'm wiping away my hard wax oils, typically I'm using just like blue shop towels, just because they're easy. And the other thing too with like the microfiber cloth, sometimes it kind of like gets grippy on your fingers, and it's just like a sensory thing. So usually I'll use those, but I wanted to use microfiber on that one because I was running a little bit low on the blue shop towels, and it just buffs a little bit easier with a microfiber cloth. So I had a 5-gallon bucket that I was used for my rags, and so I had some of them around the rim of the 5-gallon bucket, kind of like spread out a little bit. And I had tossed a few of the other ones in, as well as like the bonnet for the buffer that I had, those little microfiber bonnets to also buff it in. And so I had been folding it over so that the rag was smaller, so it was easier to pull it across the surface of the wood. And a few of them that I threw in there, I thought were unfolded, but because of the kind of the tackiness of the microfiber cloth, it kind of like stayed together. And some of these were kind of like, there were two different brands that I had. One was a lot thinner than the other, and then the other one had a little bit more poofiness to it, I guess is the word.
More pile.
Pile.
Like carpet pile.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, kind of like what your hotel towels are like, where it's got a little bit more thickness
fancy
to it. Not fancy hotels. I'm talking like Super 8 type stuff. Enough to be thicker than like a thin microfiber, but not like it's not like super high quality. But anyway, I think that was part of it too, is that it was just absorbing so much finish in there that it had a lot more to start polymerizing. Because with the blue shop towels, usually I'm going through a lot of them and just getting a little bit on there. Whereas with the microfiber ones, like I was folding all over to get the maximum usage out of these things. So they were like, they weren't drenched by it, but like every surface on it had the oil on it. And so yeah, like because like my first thought was like figuring out what was going on. I was like, oh crap, I don't want the fire extinguisher system to go off and ruin all of this work they've had refinishing and fixing this church. I'm like, oh crap. So I was like, okay,
you have business insurance.
Yeah, well, that's another story they didn't for the other one. I have business insurance. Yeah, I have business insurance. So anyway, I was like, okay, I'm just going to take it outside and deal with it out there. So I took it outside, and you could see, I took video of it. You could see the smoke coming off of these rags. They were charred. Like they were brownish black, and they were crispy. So that was my first experience with having like a true issue with oily rags and hard wax oils. Because previously I'd never had an issue, because normally, like I said, blue shop towels, like I paid attention to making sure they're laid out and all of that stuff, and I'd never had an issue even remotely close. But You know, it was just like the right mix of conditions, and it just caught me off guard. So I made sure that I was unfolding everything from that point forward and putting it on the rim of the bucket. Because the other thing was, this happened within like 4 hours of when I started refinishing. Which for some of the videos that people have made on oily rags, like some of those had sat out for like, 8 to 12 hours before something happens. So, because I tossed my stuff at the end of the day to make sure that it was out of the building and of course dried and everything. So this was like before I would empty it out normally, because before it's like, oh yeah, 4 hours is fine. Like I'll be fine and empty it out, go grab lunch or something like that. But that was also what caught me off guard, was how quickly that had started happening. Like I didn't think it would happen within 4 hours. So yeah, this is your friendly reminder to make sure that you lay out your oily rags and either douse them in water or let them dry laid out before you toss them, so that you can prevent a fire. Brought to you by Smokey the Bear.
And for those of you who are actually interested in this topic more, on YouTube, go to Bourbon Moth, go to Jason Hibbs. He did about a year ago a video of testing different hard wax materials, different amounts of rags and time. It was actually one of the most comprehensive videos I've ever seen on this topic. So I do recommend checking it out, because it does walk you through how much oil was on the rag before it starts igniting, how much, how to properly dispose of them and dry them properly. It was very well done. So
I wish I had listened to the podcast episode that they had where they talked about it, but I had not watched the video. So maybe I should have.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, that's everything that I got.
Shut up and take my money.
Well, moving on. So we're going to start a segment called Whatcha Sellin', and that is a segment where we talk about what we are selling currently or what upcoming markets. Now, I've already talked a little bit about this. I have my big UFO Fest coming up. And that's only one. So on YouTube, I call myself the king of markets, or king of craft fairs. And it's because I do at least one craft fair every single month. And during the holiday season, I do one every week from middle of October through the end of December.
But I thought you were the mayor of Workbench Con.
That too. I have a lot of titles.
So you're a king and a mayor. Okay, you're
yes.
mixing political ideologies there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of everything. And so so besides UFO Fest, I have a market coming up 2 weeks after UFO Fest. So the first week of June is the 40th anniversary of the premiere of The Goonies. Remember that movie back in the 80s? Hey, you guys.
Well, I didn't watch the original, but I did watch it when it went to VHS.
Oh, I was like, what do you mean? There's only been one. So The Goonies was filmed in Astoria, Oregon, and it has been a thing for years and years and years, where people will come to the house, that the Goonie house, and they'll take photos in it. And the house was sold a few years ago to a new owner who is a huge Goonies fan, and is been renovating it, bringing it back to what it looked like on film in the 80s. And this year they're bringing, I think there's 5 of the original Goonie cast are going to be here. So there's this huge event going on in Astoria for Goonies Week. And I work with a retail store, the Sea Gypsy in town. They're one of my regular retail stores I work with. And so I've been making and planning a whole bunch of things for Goonies Week. Because there's apparently a whole bunch of the hotels are already sold out for that week. So like there's going to be people in town, which is exciting. So I have that. I have also gotten in with a casino in the area that does these massive events. They are quickly becoming my largest events of the year. Like I'm talking 4,000 plus events every time I go, which have been really phenomenal. So I have their Father's Day Barbecue Fest in June coming up. And then my next one after that is going to be Squirrel Fest, which I just signed up for because I heard about it from another vendor. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, which was if you're in vending and you're doing craft fairs, make sure you make friends with other vendors, because you get to talk and they'll tell you about events that are coming up. Or in my case, like Joey, he's a friend of mine. He does metal work. He messages me because he's always by himself and my wife always comes with me. And so he's like, hey, are you going to this market? If not, you should. And also we could request so we can sit by each other. So that way, when I need to use the bathroom, your wife can come into my booth and take over. and so we've just had this fun little friendship. And so he just told me about this new fest called Squirrel Fest. Apparently it's 15 years old in Longview, Washington. It's all things nutty and related to squirrels. So I have no idea. I assume it's going to be great people watching. But they have like a whole like circus performers coming with juggling and like the people who spin plates on things. And so it's going to be...
Wait, they're not going to juggle squirrels?
I don't think so, but there is like... So Longview is known for their squirrel bridges, which go over streets and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. And so
ours
I
just
guess
use telephone poles.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
like
power
everybody.
cables.
Like everybody else in the world.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a tour of the bridges and a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, so those are my upcoming events. And then for those who are interested in what's actually selling right now, I keep track of everything that sells at my retail locations and what I do at markets. And I've been finding a steady uptick in cribbage boards in the last year. And I think Gen Z, because everybody who's been buying them from me, especially in person, are younger people. And I think Gen Z is getting into cribbage. And I want to think it's because they remember it. And when I talk to people, they say, oh, I used to play with my grandpa and stuff like that. And so that market is starting, they're getting old enough now that they have that nostalgia for when they were youngers.
Nostalgia at the age of 20-something.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in my day.
Yeah, but they're getting to that point where I'm seeing this uptick in especially some of my older games like cribbage boards from younger people, and they're wanting like specialty cribbage boards with so I'll do epoxy inlays. And so like I just sold one. He wanted his he's a frat guy and he wanted his frat logo. I don't know what else you call it, I forget.
They're Greek alphabet numbers.
Yeah. So
to me, the Greek alphabet was for math, but for everyone else, it was for the frat houses.
Yeah. So he wanted that on the board, and he's apparently sending me a whole bunch of his frat brothers who want boards too. And I was like, man, frat houses are different in my day. We weren't playing cribbage. I wasn't in one, but they weren't playing cribbage. And then at my retail stores, I'm noticing over year about a 50% increase in any item that's under $20, which is a significant increase. And my assumption is that's a sign of our recession / economy slowdown currently, because people aren't spending a lot of money on bigger games or things, but they're like, oh, I can still buy this $10 coffee scoop or this bookmark.
Yeah, with their walking around money.
Yeah, exactly. With just some smaller stuff versus some bigger machines. So if you're getting into markets and you're doing markets right now, that's what I'm seeing move, at least in my area. But I always do recommend people have a good selection of $20 under items because they're a great impulse buy, and especially at craft fairs where people are going to be spending some money, but are going to not want to blow all their money in one location. So if you have some smaller items, it's a great way to mix a little bit of extra here and there.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment on seeing a slowdown on bigger purchases, because that's what I've been doing more of is large custom pieces where it's like coffee tables, side tables, dining tables, and I've seen a lot of orders get where they're like go from I'm sending the check into the mail to like radio silence or putting it on pause. So I definitely think that that really jives with what you're saying about people spending more on smaller items.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are uncertain of how the economy is going to work out right now, and not going down the political rabbit hole. It's just that as a maker and as a business person, you do need to be aware of that and adjust as things are moving. And so for me, that's making sure I have more small things. And we'll see how the markets this summer go. Summer's always slower than the holidays, and maybe the economy will be better in the holidays. I'm hopeful, but yeah, it's definitely lower than it was year over year. So it'll be interesting to see how the markets continue to go.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, like I was saying, for me, like having a lot more of those bigger custom items, that's where I've been experimenting more with doing more laser stuff as well as 3D printing things. So, because the space that I operate in is, bigger work pieces, because that's how I kind of got my unique differentiator from other local woodworkers is like, well, I'm going to do large stuff because not everyone does large stuff. And so now it's kind of pulling back a little bit and diversifying and figuring out what I can do with the laser as well as the 3D printer for little trinkets, because I had gotten a 3D printer because my son had been asking me about it, and I got that last fall on some Black Friday deals. And so we've just been making stuff around the house and the occasional gift for someone. But there's a local farmer's market that goes on during the summer that I'll probably be going to, and that's probably where I'm going to test out a few of those things, like personalized things as well as small knick-knack 3D printed items. And since that laser engraver that I have is portable, I can bring that with me and engrave stuff on site. So I'm curious if that will, if anything, draw people in just to see what's happening. Because even if it doesn't like spike a bunch of people to, oh, engrave my wallet or whatever. I don't know what people would want to engrave that they would have on hand, but it would still intrigue and at least get people to stop by and actually look at your table and give you a little bit of eyes on what you have for inventory. So I'm just kind of getting started on that stuff. So I am already taking your advice on trying to go for some of those smaller items that are easy sells for someone who's just, like you said, impulse buying something.
Right. And you bring up a good point about doing the customization. I at markets, I've been seeing more and more, especially with the X tool. I think it's the F1, the little small fiber laser, but it's portable. And so a lot of people have been bringing that to markets and will offer on-site customization, which I have a thing against in a small or in an indoor market because it starts smelling up the place with the laser. But if it's an outdoor market, all more power to you. But inside, just be aware that smoke travels to your other neighbors. So,
yeah, because I know at least with mine, it's got some exhaust on it, but it's not perfect. So yeah, doing some stuff inside, like making sure that you're cognizant of that is good. But fortunately, this one's just like an outdoor one, which the good thing is I have a little power inverter that can take the Makita batteries that I have, and it's like a 300 watt inverter, which is enough to power this thing, so I don't have to bring cables or anything. So that's the good thing of having that outdoors, is that I have power for it. Cool. Well, that's, I mean, we both kind of talked on the similar thing there, but that's all that I've got for what I've been, or at least attempting to sell lately.
yeah.
I got my eye on you.
So this week I've been doing a motivated look into YouTube, and I've been really focused on trying to, instead of having the algorithm find things for me, I've been going, if you're on a computer, go to the search bar, type in woodworking, and then you can add a filter to that, just like you would on filtering, an Excel chart. And so I've been going the last 5 days on my filter, and because I'm really trying to see, what are people putting out there that the algorithm is ignoring or pushing bigger accounts and stuff. So I've been really focused on trying to find smaller accounts who are posting regularly and new. And I have a couple of people I wanted to bring up and give a shout out to. First of all is a brand new channel. He only launched 4 days ago, and he's already got 2,500 subscribers. And both his videos already have over 10K views. Like,
Nice.
He's killing it with only 4 videos published in 4 days, because he posted 4 at the same time. But the guy's name's Jefferson. His brand is the Great Endorsement. He is hysterical. His whole shtick that he puts out on his thing is he calls it the inner monologue of the neurotic woodworker. So his first project were these turned clocks that he made using a lathe and a whole bunch of other tools. And what was cool about this is he released 2 versions of the video. One with his internal monologue of just him chatting of what kind of comes to his mind as he's making this project. And then 2 that is an AMSR style, which is literally just the audio of the shop sounds as he's making it. I thought that was such a neat thing to do for those who don't want to listen to somebody talk about their experience, or those who do want to know what's happening inside our head as we're sanding and that kind of stuff. So I was really impressed with his video quality is phenomenal. His audio is phenomenal. Like, the guy's got to have experience in video stuff before for this to be his first couple project videos. But I was really impressed with the video. So make sure you go check him out. Couple more. I had Bearded Viking Woodworks. Daniel is the guy. And what I really liked about Daniel's video is, so first of all of his videos are made with dimensional wood and simple tools. Anything that any weekend woodworker is going to have. A lot of his stuff is made by 2x4s. Like, he did a shop stool out of it with a candle centerpiece that he used from the scraps. Like, it was pretty cool stuff. What I liked about his video was his latest one. He was calling out the people in his comments, the trolls in his comments, and he's like, "Hey, here's my phone number." And he put his phone number up on the screen. And he's like, "Call me or text me if you have things that you want to say, and I will gladly have a conversation with you." And I'm like, that's got to be fake, right? So I texted him. And I was like, "Hey, this is Alex from Duffey Woodcraft, blah, blah. Like, I saw your video. I thought it was great. Is this actually you, or is this a fake number?" And he texted back, and we had a little quick conversation.
Wow. That's so ballsy.
It's super ballsy. I was really impressed. I thought it was one, it's hysterical, but 2, there are people on there that literally just want to troll comments. And so I like people taking an extra step of like, hey, if you have something to say, like, "Oh, you should have used a push stick here," or things like that, just tell me in person and let's talk about it. Don't just hide behind your keyboard. Or as he calls them, the keyboard warriors.
Hide behind their 20 years of experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The common trope of, "I've got 20 years of experience in this, and you're doing it wrong." Sure.
Yeah. Another, he's I'd say a media maker. He's more of on the art side of things. Alex, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. It's Alec Lacasse. I don't know. But and that's his YouTube handle. So LACASSE. And he makes ASMR style videos of hand wood carving. So he doesn't use any tools. It's all hand chisels. And I was watching this piece of him hand carving an owl out of a chunk of firewood. It was a 12-minute video, and I couldn't have been more captivated through the whole 12 minutes.
Was it in real time?
It was in real time as he was carving the thing. And man, he's an incredible sculptor. So I did a whole bunch of like deep dive in his videos, and he actually has an online school to teach you how to do hand carving. And so he's got a bunch of stuff built up for it. But I was really hoping the owl was for sale on his website. Sadly, it was not. Otherwise, that would have been mine. It was so cool. He does have this this bust of Teddy Roosevelt that he's carved out of wood, and I swear it looks exactly like any Teddy Roosevelt picture you've seen. Like, his carving is so good it could be a photograph.
Wow.
So it was really cool. I was really impressed. And that's my like dive into the community as far as woodworking. The other thing I've been obsessed with this week, and I was showing my wife today, Victoria, are all these little baby AI videos. I've sent you a few.
Yeah, you have.
I know that they're trending too right now because all I'm seeing is them, and it's all these people using AI to do scenes from movies, and the characters are made these little into AI babies, and I can't get enough of them. They are the funniest things. There are so many around Top Gear and the old Top Gear guys as babies yelling at each other, and just makes my day. And every time I hear them yell, "Hammond!" So
that's wonderful. I love that show.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. And I'm not a huge car guy. I love that show. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So those have been really entertaining to watch. But that's what I've been watching this week.
Yeah, I started a lot of like stuff that I watched on YouTube when I was early on woodworking, but I've moved a lot more towards Instagram, and I love going through Instagram stories, just because there's like so much more to see what people have been going through and making. So that's a lot of stuff that I've been watching and looking at. So one of them that I've been following along with is Market Streamline Woodshop. He's been building I think it's a deck for his backyard, and then he's also been like fixing some like post supports as well. And he did a troll video on fixing one of the beams, where he's like explaining this like complete like BS science on dry rotting and whatever, and he's like filling this thing in with foam and all of like the cracks and stuff, and then like wrapping it with tape, and it was just so wonderful. He's been definitely rustling up the trolls recently, with a lot of other videos too, because I think he had one on there's been a lot of is CNC real woodworking, so he did an actual reel on that one. So I've seen quite a few of those videos pop up. So that was pretty fun. And then one thing that I saw recently from Danny at Upper Room Creations is he made a couple of Beetlejuice signs.
I saw these.
Those are really, really cool. And I think those are ones that he made to rent out for like events and things, since he rents a lot of his signs and like stage props and other things. So those Beetlejuice ones turned out really, really nice. So I think did he just make two of them? I think it was just two of them that he made.
I think so.
Right. Yeah, those were really nice. And then another account that I follow, it's like woodworking adjacent. So they make bamboo fly rods, and their Instagram handle is, I think it's Oyster Bamboo, and so they do a lot of metal engraving on the like the medallion on the fly fishing rods that they have. So they do all sorts of really cool stuff with that. I can't remember. They do a lot of like fish and other things. I can't remember. I can't remember the most recent one that I saw, but I just love watching those videos because I personally love fly fishing, and so I was like, oh, one of these would be so cool to have, because I've never personally had a bamboo fly rod, but I'm intrigued at the idea of potentially having one someday. But today is not that day. And then one thing that I saw recently was Justin Maybe's Ouija board that he made. I think it was like a couple days ago, I think. And it's not technically a Ouija board, since I think that's like Mattel or Hasbro's like trademark on it or something. So it's a sparkling Ouija board is what it is. So that one turned out really nice.
And
Because
this was actually his second set of them. He had made some Ouija boards last October for Halloween, and did a couple of videos on it too.
Okay. No, yeah, he did a lot of stuff on this one, and it turned out really, really nice. I mean, I'm not a connoisseur of Ouija boards, but it looked very, very well done. So that was pretty cool. And then the last one that I had, Yessie at Knock on Wood. So she had in her stories, she had discovered that on the Makita battery chargers, if you like do this little thing where you like put them on and take them off real quick, like a couple of times, it will change the chime that plays when you put a battery on and when it's finished charging. So there's all these types of like classical music and like other things that it plays, but I mean, it's not like the actual thing. It's just kind of like the beeping noises of it to get the like the melody of it, which is because I've got a couple of Makita chargers, so I had to go try it, and then lo and behold, it worked. So it made me giggle. So it was a lot of fun, because I mean, like, functionally, it's nice to actually have that chime when the battery is done charging, because I get distracted with stuff and forget that I have batteries on there when I need to be swapping batteries, because I have my like yard tools are powered by Makita batteries. I've got a lawnmower and a weed whacker, so I gotta like swap them out occasionally. So paying attention to that is beneficial. So, but the other thing that Yessie had that she just got today, I'm gonna ask if you had a hand in this. She got herself a Next Wave CNC, which I know you're a Next Wave boy. So did you make this happen? Did you influence your constituent?
So I made an introduction. They met at WorkbenchCon this year, and I made the introduction and a connection between the two of them to help facilitate that, because they were both interested in working with each other. I love Yessie. She's one of my favorite makers that I follow. And yeah, her stories all today were waiting for the FedEx guy to show up, and then there he was, and then she was sitting on the boxes, and because it comes on a pallet. If you guys have seen the Next Wave machines, they're hefty, they're huge aluminum beds and everything, and so it comes on a pallet, and so yeah, I was very pleased, and I've been waiting for so long for her to get it, because I knew it was coming. Let's see, probably a little over a month ago. And so we had there's a Instagram chat of myself and the other Next Wave team members, and so we had added her to the chat and have been like, is it here yet? Is it here yet?
Oh, so you added her to the chat right away.
Oh yeah. As soon as she kind of set up her deal with Next Wave and everything, I immediately added her to the chat so that she could get introduced to everybody. And then, what's really great about Team Next Wave is, and besides the company itself, which is absolutely phenomenal, and I am biased, but the group of us Next Wave users who are in this chat, all of us are there to help each other. And so like today, Scott Wiener from Crafty Studio, he was messaging Yessie too, like, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to call me. I'll show you how to do it the wrong way first. And just and like Mark Spagnolo, the Wood Whisperer, he's new to the Next Wave team. He's in that chat too now. So
you got Mark in the chat as well. Okay.
Got Mark in the chat too.
I was gonna ask if you had included him in the chat.
I did. I asked him first if he wanted to be included, because I don't want to bug him with more chats, and so
more noise.
Yeah, and so he was very excited to be part of it too. So yeah, it's been great. It's a great group of people.
Yeah, because I think he got his set up recently, and I think he's done a couple of small things on his. Right. He
has, and he just released, I think it was about a week and a half ago, he released his setup video of he has their 4x4 machine, the HD 544. And so that's the 4x4 that he got and set it up. And
for some reason I thought he got the 4x8. I don't know why.
No, he got the 4x4.
Okay.
And he set up the bed. He actually made a French cleat, or not a French cleat, sorry. what is that? Not
The
T-Track.
T-Track?
No, it's from Microjig. It's their specific. What's that?
The
Diamond
Groove?
shaped groove.
I do not know what the name of that is.
Yeah. Well, if you watch his video, he walks you through it, but it works with the whole micro jig system for clamping. And so he actually routed that into his spoil board so that he could just run the clamps and stuff through. So very similar to a T-Track, but not it's that
a proprietary version.
Yeah,
the microjig version. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Summarize it in one word.
Why one word is CNC woodshop, which is technically 4 words. Yeah, computer numerical control woodshop. Sure. So our discussion topic this week is about shop setup and our specializations. So for me, I am a CNC woodshop designed to create custom and small projects. So a little bit about my history. I started back in 2019 doing just wood turning. I originally built my wood shop around a lathe. And I actually built a wall. So my wood shop, by the way, is our garage. It's a 2-car wide with 1 extra stall tandem. So it's technically 3 cars, but 1 is extra long. And so when I started woodworking, I was doing lathe work, and my wife was like, "You're getting sawdust all over my car. I can't handle it anymore. You need to do something with it." So I built a wall. And I built a wall to cut off that back section.
As one does.
As one does, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I'll just build a little, I built an enclosure wall and then had an opening that then I used a drop-down cloth to cover when I was turning and stuff. And that, was about a year or so. And then I started experimenting with making smaller projects. And I was like, oh, I always wanted to make a cribbage board. I'm going to make a cribbage board. And so I started making cribbage boards. And about that time, again, my wife said, "You're spending way too much money on this. You need to start covering some of the costs." So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to do craft fairs. And so I started making things for craft fairs and selling my products. And this is a long story to tell you why I got my CNC. And I got my CNC because I sold about 100 cribbage boards, making them all by hand using the drill press and the little plastic template you get from Rockler.
I have made those before.
It's 192 holes all by hand. It takes you 3 hours doing this to line them up perfectly per cribbage board. And
I've done it with a hand drill. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I only made a few.
But and it's tough. And so about that time, I was going down, YouTube University, learning everything I could, and I came across, as many of us have, Andy Bird from Bird Builds, and the OG CNC woodworker on YouTube. And he's and I've told him this in person since I've been lucky enough to meet him. He's the reason why I bought a CNC. I was enthralled. I had never heard of a CNC before. And so I was watching his videos and I was like, this is so cool. I can just program it in CAD and tell it what to make. I could not ever have to do a cribbage board by hand ever again. And so I bought my very first from Next Wave, a SD 110, the 120, which is their 1 foot by 2 foot machine. Very small desktop CNC. But I bought it only to do cribbage boards, and it was perfect. And I very quickly was like, well, what else can I make with this? And so I started making a whole bunch of other things. And it was about 2 years ago when I was like, all right, I can't keep using a 1 foot machine anymore. I have to have a bigger machine. And that was the time I met Next Wave and started working with them and got their 2 foot by 4 foot machine. But since then, my shop has been a specialty. I finally found what I think my niche is, which is CNC design. And I love everything about it, from 3D carving that you can do and so many different uses for that. So like even my wife and I, for our 15 wedding anniversary last year, did a cruise, and apparently cruise ducks are a thing where people like hide ducks throughout the cruise ship. And I was like, this is cool. I want to do this. I'm not going to buy the cheap rubber ducks though. I'm going to do my spin on it. And so I found an STL file, so a 3D printing machine file of a duck, and I cut it in half.
Right.
And I had the CNC cut half of the duck, and I did it twice, and then I just glued them together to make a 3D duck. And so I hid those around. And so like there's just so many things that a CNC can do that you don't realize it can do. Little spoilers, I just recently got the 4th axis for my machine. So I'm eventually I've been trying to learn the software aspect of it in Vetric currently, of doing rotary with the CNC. And so now I'm learning how to do that. So I want to make my own custom chess pieces, which I thought would be cool. I can make my UFO ships, since it's a 3D design car, if I can do that with the rotary. So, so I've really set my shop has grown from working around a lathe and doing projects for me to I've designed my shop at this point to be a custom CNC shop, because that's what I have found my niche to be. I really enjoy that. And I like doing markets, and I like doing retail products. And those to me are all small things versus larger tables and stuff. And that's because I would rather sell, and this is my own personal thing, because a little vanity, I guess. I don't know. I like the idea that people have my thing, and I want as many people to have my products as possible. So if that means I have to sell 1,000 soap dishes, so 1,000 people have my soap dishes, I'd rather have that than one person have one side table that I made this one time. And that's just me, because I like the idea that, and that's why I make so many board games too. And that's something I've been specializing in this last year. Because I like the idea that the product I'm selling is also going to get used and bring people together, and that they're going to use it. So like I make these Yahtzee boxes, and I make dominoes game sets, and aggravation boards for families. And so it's been a lot of fun customizing my shop, and I'm getting to the point where I think I'm going to have to get a second CNC, because I'm at the level now that I'm making stuff. My machine at this point runs at least 4 to 5 hours every single day. And I would like to be able to set up one machine to do one product that I sell constantly, and just have it pumping them out over and over again, instead of having to set it up in between other projects and stuff. So yeah, so that's my shop in products at this point. Is my life is around custom CNC design, and eventually looking at the future. My wife and I are hopefully going to move in the next 2 years, most likely, as long as interest rates come down. And we want to get like 10 or so acres, and we're going to build a shop that will have a couple of offices in it for both of us, since we work from home as well during our day jobs. But also be, right now my current design is the shop would probably be around 5,000 square feet. So
wow. That's a pretty big footprint.
Big shop. Yeah.
That would be what, that'd be a 25 by 25.
I don't remember exactly the blueprints downstairs from what I was designing. And so it basically, how I have it laid out, and my idea is that a little portion is going to be dry storage for hardwood that I'm drying, and will be, inside, because I live in the Pacific Northwest. It rains all the time. I need indoor dry space. And then I will have a room that is just a finishing room, so that I can keep it clean and not have to worry about dust or particles. And then the main shop itself, and then again another wall that will separate, then 2 offices and a little kitchenette, bathroom, and clean washroom to wash up and stuff at the end of the day. So
is the stuff that you're making on the CNC, how often are you designing something new versus like a product that you've just been selling for months or years on end?
Yeah, there are a couple of products that never change because I use the same dimensional wood over and over again. But because I work, in my company, I specialize in ethically sourced hardwood. I only work with lumber yards that are either harvesting wood that has already fallen and died or needs to be removed due to a safety hazard, but also does replanting efforts. It's a Pacific Northwest thing. I want to make sure our forests are here forever. And so a lot of that means is I'm not getting dimensional. I am getting 8/4 or 4/4, but it's, this curly log that was all twisted. And so it's not a straight board. So I'm only using certain areas of it. So a lot of the time it's the same file I'm cutting out, but I do have to adapt it for the piece of wood that I'm putting on the CNC to fit the size. Or like, I know that, this, it's not just a 12-inch by 24-inch piece of wood. It's 12 inches here, but 9 inches up here. And so I can get 2 cribbage boards across here, but only 1 up here. And so it means I am adapting the files. So I would say design work of the same products I do over and over again is about 25%. Another 25% is files I do over and over again. And then I'd say 50% because of my YouTube channel, because of custom work I do with people in the area. I'd say about 50% is designing from the ground up.
And then you said that 50% was customization. So is that, how much of that is like a brand new product versus putting a name on something and customizing it that way?
I would say out of that percentage, probably 1/4 is customizing and 75 is new product. And that's mainly because I committed this last year, every 2 weeks, a new product video on my YouTube channel. And so every 2 weeks I'm designing a new product. And so that has been, by the way, if you ever want to challenge yourself to design a new product every 2 weeks, that one is a crazy goal to make. Yeah. But 2, it really does push you to design things. And I feel very comfortable now as a designer than I did even a year ago, because I would not have felt comfortable just opening up a Vectric and being like, oh, I wonder what I can make for the kitchen today. And, making some trays and that are also a trivet that turns into a cookbook holder and things like that. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool makeup. Yeah, I'm on the other end of the spectrum because I do not have a CNC, and I know, scandalous. And kind of where, because right now I had mentioned earlier, kind of the space that I play in is large custom pieces. But how I kind of got into the space was like the urban logging type stuff, where it's like, okay, there's wood around me, I can get materials for a hobby and do stuff. If I don't have a lot of funds to get material, like I can spend time going and getting it. Like I had it was maybe like $150 or $200 worth into like an electric chainsaw mill setup that I had, where it's like, okay, I can slab stuff, I can make what I want when I need. And then as I went along, and as one does, turning hobbies into businesses, I was like, okay, you've got a lot of people around you in your local community that are retirees who do like wood turning and other stuff, or other family members that do projects for people. And so I was like, okay, how can I differentiate myself? And so for me, it was you go big and you go home by having your workshop in your home. So I went with bigger pieces that people would generally either, not find an IKEA or Walmart equivalent to, as well as something that family member probably wouldn't be able to handle. So with working with some of those bigger slab pieces, one thing that I got it's probably about as close as I'll get to a CNC for a while is I have a huge router sled for flattening large slabs, so I can flatten something that's 6 foot by 12 foot.
Nice.
So the reason that I went with that, it's a modular setup that's from True Track, and the reason that I went with that size was because I can go basically dining table size. Anything bigger than that, and like you need like 4 or 5 people to move stuff if it doesn't break apart into multiple pieces. But that's something that lives in my driveway. The frame is outside, but it's a wood frame, and I just take the components off when I'm not using it. So that was kind of my like first kind of dive into stuff, was like live edge, large slab type things where it's bar top tables or coffee tables or other things. Probably one of the biggest, earliest pieces that I made was this bar top table that had, I still kick myself for this, it was 6 pipe legs, which is a pain in the butt to screw together and get it to be like nice and tight with all of the, because there was like a footrest that went around the bottom for that. And that was one large slab it was like an 8-foot slab by 2 foot, was the size of that one. And so that's probably one of the bigger size projects that I had early on. And then I had a few TV stands and other things, because normally I'm working with like 9/4 or 8/4 rough sawn material that I get from local sawmills. Because in our area, it's a lot of urban stuff, as well as, you know, sometimes with like farmland, they're getting rid of some trees that are by like a creek or whatever. So I get a lot of walnut, maple, ash, oak, very much in my area. And I'm usually working with walnut because that's what people are requesting. And so I kind of let customers drive what I made, in addition to being like larger items, because then that allowed me to not need to carry as much inventory as well. So if it was a custom thing, generally they were like picking out the lumber for it, or I was with there working them, with either sending pictures or having them be there when I picked out the lumber for it. So then I was essentially would make sure, okay, getting paid by the client, so then I can go buy the material, so there's no like issues with carrying over inventory or making sure that I have certain wood in stock for what it was that I was needing to make. And then I had done some part-time work at a local furniture store, and I started selling some stuff through them. And that part-time work was just like sales stuff over the weekends. And I had started doing that just for some like extra Christmas money. And that turned into selling the occasional like custom piece in there, because you don't want to like cannibalize the sales of stuff that they already sell, that they can source a lot of and push a lot of product through in their store. So I'm kind of like their like last line of defense of like someone walking out the door but wanting something they can't have. It's like, okay, we got someone who can make custom stuff. Like, it's, you know, it's a higher dollar item, but you'll get exactly what you want for your desk or table or what have you.
That's a great setup.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's, I mean, with larger items having some issues, you know, moving product recently, just because people are a little bit more cautious with some of those bigger purchases, because you know, because I'm on the other end of the spectrum from you pushing through like a lot of product versus me. It's like, if I'm doing, you know, depending on the item, a couple of sales, like, you know, a typical item for me is probably in that like 3,000 to 5,000 range per item. So for me, it's like, if I sell like 1 or 2, that's a good amount of revenue coming in from that. And so it's the spaces in between those sales where I'm like, okay, I need to start doing a little bit more with the laser that I got, as well as making some smaller pieces, which naturally you get more offcuts. And I've been trying to fit in some of those smaller projects, but I just had so much of a backlog of bigger projects is like just trying to fit in the other stuff. The schedule was not allowing. So I'm getting to the stage where I'm catching up on things, because one of the challenging aspects is like not only physically having the strength to move all of these slabs around, and not be exhausted for the day, but also having the space set up to be able to do this. So my setup, I've got a lot of space, but it's across like multiple rooms, if you will. So the basement of our house, I've got two 10 by 30 rooms, essentially. One is like the main workshop space, but that shares some space with like the furnace and the water heater and things. And then the other side, which it has a drain on there, so it's got that kind of slope to it. So that's why I don't use it as my main workshop. That one's kind of like finishing as well as like storage of lumber for upcoming projects that I have. And then we have a single car detached garage, which is where I am right now. And this is where I do like final assembly of larger projects, because it can go out the garage door, as opposed to the other ones I've got to go upstairs to get out of there. Now I can fit 10-foot boards in my basement, and get them down there, but that's like the limit. Like I test the limit, so I know what size something is going to be finally assembled, so that I know if I can get it out of my basement or not. So I've gotten some pretty large projects out of there. I don't try and do super big things like TV stands and whatever, because of the weight and the awkwardness of the size. So things like that, I try and do the final assembly down here, but I do all the milling and everything down in the basement safe, just because it's easier to work in that environment.
I can't imagine that. I hate moving slabs around my garage. The fact that you're moving slabs downstairs into your workshop first, milling them up, working, building, and then moving it back upstairs again. Man, that is you're not kidding about that physical aspect of it.
Yeah. So generally speaking, if I've got a slab that is because a typical slab for me, or a rough sawn piece, is going to be about, a foot to 18 inches wide by about 8 foot long, which I can handle that stuff on my own pretty easily. It's when you start getting any wider, or longer in length, that it becomes either a little bit finicky to get there, or it's just too much weight to be able to hold properly. And then essentially the fourth place is that retail store that I've worked with. They have a basement space that their freight elevator doesn't access, and so it's a space that's about 80 foot by 20 foot, but it's like a dirt floor on part of it, and part of it's like a really thin concrete flooring. But all of these spaces are between about 6 and 7 feet high, so I don't have a lot of headroom. But that place, in that basement space, because it's got because we're talking like 1800s building, where it's like stone and brick are the walls in that basement space. And that's where I store, that's like my longer term lumber storage. I had looked into having some tools in that space and doing some stuff down there, but logistically it didn't make sense. There was limits on how much electrical I could get down there, and the radon levels are a little bit higher than you would want in that basement space, which is it's not a bad thing, but if you're like constant exposure to it, that's when you start developing like lung cancer and whatever. So I'm not in that space. That's why it's in the long-term storage. I've got some industrial dehumidifiers down there to maintain the humidity. So I'll actually air dry lumber in that space, because I can control the humidity down there, as well as the temperature is pretty constantly between 65 and 75, depending on the time of year. So it's pretty constant temperature and humidity. So it makes really good drying conditions for air drying because you don't have those huge temperature swings that you get when you're outdoors, let alone humidity and rain and whatnot that can make it challenging for drying lumber.
I mean, it's a cellar. Yeah, that's what they're designed for.
Yep. So yeah, the long story short is basically from tree to table is kind of my like bread and butter that I like to do. But I'm learning to branch out into some smaller stuff here. So I push the limits of my tools as well, where I don't want to say like do redneck stuff with it, but like doing things that are a little bit less conventional. Because like I do not have a like super nice jointer by any means. So I have a benchtop grizzly jointer I got it because it's got a 12-inch wide bed. But the fence on it is absolute garbage. So you don't want to joint your second face on that. So what I do, I use my track saw a bunch. So I joint that second face with the track saw a lot. And I rarely use the table saw as well, because I just don't need it a whole bunch. And just having the space for it is challenging because like the main workspace is in the basement. So getting a decent sized saw down there is, not an easy feat. I do have
carrying that well down the stairs.
Yeah, anything beyond like a contractor saw is you're not getting it down there without some kind of like physical injury happening. So like in the garage space that I have, the concrete is pretty warm, so the floor is not super flat. So I don't have a whole lot of mostly like the machines that I can't get down into the basement or just aren't conducive for it or I don't use a lot. So like I've got a drum sander in here. I do have it's a skill saw, job site saw. It's like it's not the one where you like set on top of stuff. It's like got its own base with wheels and things.
Yeah.
So I get like a lot of tools that I have are made for like thick material. Like whenever I'm getting something, it's like, okay, I've got to be able to get, 8-quarter material through here, to be able to cut. So like for me, I went with because speaking of the track saw, like I went with the Festool TS75 because of the fact that I can do a 2-inch thick miter with that in a single pass at 45 degrees.
Wow.
And then I also have I do have a beam saw as well for like cutting mantles and things as well. So that kind of goes back to the like dealing with large material, like having the tools to do that stuff easily. Now you still can do that stuff. It just becomes a lot more finicky because, there are people who will do like mitered waterfall tables or whatever with a track saw, but they have to do it in 2 passes and it can be done. It just becomes a little bit more tedious to like line everything up.
I love hearing a different language come from you as far as tools go because I don't work in that space, and so like you just said beam saw. I've never heard of a beam saw before.
Yeah,
I'm like if I had to cut a beam.
yeah, just your circular saw on steroids. That's let's see, what can I do with that one? It's the skill saw version, so it's like a 16-inch and 7/8.
Wow.
Is the size of the blade. So you can cut, I think it's like 6.5 inches or 6 inches in a single pass. And so I actually have a Diablo blade on that thing. I think it's like a 60-tooth blade. And you will get as clean of a cut on that thing as the Festool.
Wow.
The thing about that, though, because with circular saws and other saws, if you get a good blade on it, you can get the same surface finish as like a really nice track saw, whether it's Festool, Milwaukee, or any of those other brands. The trouble is going to be the dust collection, and if you can handle it. Because if you're doing it outside and you don't care about dust collection, that's fine. As long as you've got a straight edge that's long enough and a good blade, you can get really nice surface finish, and I've done that. But the nice thing about the track saw is that there's better dust collection, and so that allows me to do it indoors easily. Because even though my wife's car is not in this garage, getting sawdust on it would have been an issue if it was, a 2-car garage. But it's not an issue for me because I kicked them out. We have a really long driveway as well, because you can fit like 8 cars in our driveway. It's like a monster of a thing. So that's why I can fit the router sled in the driveway.
I did make that comment, by the way, that she parked in the garage. That was only when I had the lathe. Now that it's a full-on CNC business, she hasn't parked in the garage in years. I think it's been pre-COVID the last time she parked in the garage.
Yeah, you slowly annex all of the space that you need. That's basically how I got all of the space that I have, is that you just slowly start moving things in there, and then it becomes that space.
Yep.
Yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, we weren't missing out a lot on the garage, because it's only a single car garage and it's attached. So it's like you could have one car, but that's fine. And we have older cars anyway, so I don't really care about them being out in the elements. They're made to be out there.
Well, yeah, and you're in the Midwest, so you have to worry about hail and stuff. We don't have to worry about that here, luckily.
Yeah, we get the occasional hail, but I've got enough hail damage on those cars after the years that it just does not matter. So, because I like having an older vehicle, because you can just not worry about it. Plus, your insurance is super cheap, and taxes for your registration on your vehicle is super cheap anyway. So, it is nice all around when it comes to expenses, having all of those. Having the 2 older cars.
Nice.
But yeah, I rambled on plenty there, so I don't know if I actually dove too far into the stuff I make, but at least I talked about my shop. So that's the important thing, right?
Hey, that was this week's topic, is our shops. So I do have a question about your shop. If so, you don't have a CNC. Shame. What you say you use your track saw a lot? Is that your favorite tool then? Do you have a favorite tool?
Oh, now you're putting me down the path of having a favorite child.
Yes, you have to pick your favorite child.
Oh man. Honestly, it's probably gonna be the Rotex, because I use that thing so much. And honestly, so I use the material removal Rotex mode almost exclusively on that thing, because generally when I get up to 180 grit and most of your woods, you typically can't see the mill marks or the scratch pattern on that. It depends on the type of wood, but sometimes if you get up to like 220, it's hard to see. Sometimes what I'll do is, once I get up to that final grit, I'll switch it over to random orbit mode, and then it'll be done. That's, and I'll probably get some hate for this, but I actually do enjoy sanding. Something is so it's something that's just therapeutic about it, and seeing and feeling the surface finish get better and better, and just like the anticipation of getting so close to being done excites me. So that's why I'd say that I love the Rotex. Like, it's my workhorse. The track saw would probably be second.
Nice. Yeah, I also love sanding. And this is I want to talk about in a future podcast, because sanding just as a topic in general. But it's why I do my sanding thought in my videos. I love sanding. It's fun for me, it's just a chill out moment. It allows me to dump everything out of my brain and just focus on the immediate task at hand, and allow my brain just to drift into the wood.
And I will, and I throw on a lot of podcasts or TV shows while I'm sanding or doing stuff. Because I've usually, like, one of my non-conventional tools that I would say that I use the most are the AirPods Pro that I have, because that helps me stay focused with either podcast music or with like something on the TV on the shop while I'm working, so that I can not get distracted by other stuff, since they're, noise canceling and all that fun stuff. It helps me stay a little bit more focused on what is at hand, because you know how it is, where there's a million things to do. You can tire yourself out deciding on what to do, and by the end of that, you don't have any time left. So having those distractions minimized is tremendously helpful.
Cool. Well, we have some events coming up soon. You want to talk about the event that you're going to be going to this week?
Yeah, so I alluded to the Maker Meetup that is happening this upcoming weekend in Omaha. So that'll be at the Omaha Wood Co. Is the location that'll be hosted. And then, so another Woodshop podcast are the guys that are essentially putting on that event. And then they are raffling off a bunch of different items, and everything from those raffles goes to Makers for St. Jude. So it goes to a great cause. So they'll have a lot of fun there. And then I have some. So my wife's younger brother is graduating high school, so I won't be able to be there for the after party events and all that fun stuff. But I'll be there for the official sanctioned portion of the Maker Meetup. So I'm really excited to go to that and have a lot of fun and see a lot of people that I do not get to see in person super frequently.
Yeah, I'm super jealous. I hope you have a lot of fun and are excited. I'm going to be stuck vending, but I will try and make it next year.
Vendor's gonna vend, right?
Yeah, vendors got to vend. Yeah, and you did allude to Makers for St. Jude. I do want to plug them real quick. Mike for Makers Against Cancer. He is a phenomenal man, a two-time cancer survivor, childhood and adult. And he started Makers for St. Jude, which is a great organization that basically is all of us makers coming together to either raffle off, purchase, donate, whatever you can do of your wares to help raise money for to fight childhood cancer. All proceeds and all donations go to Makers for go to St. Jude's through Makers for St. Jude. So if you want to learn more about it, go to makersforstjude.com. We just kicked off the spring fundraiser last Wednesday, so May 7th. And I'm actually one of the hosts this year for that. And so I'm plugging that just because it is a great organization and something that I'm really passionate about. So makersforstjude.com, learn how to get involved and either bid on some of the auctions that are going on or set up your own auction.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we have is you can also find us on Patreon. We'll be getting together different Patreon tiers, but I believe it'll be patreon.com/Whatcha Makin show, I believe is the URL where you'll be able to find that. So head on over there to find all of the fun benefits that we will have in those tiers.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode of Whatcha Makin, and we're here to remind you
life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.